So I've been a photographer for a very long time. I've always been interested in space. I remember the moon landings, and that inspired me to work in this sector. I was fortunate enough to end up flying with Neil Armstrong and spending some time with him and photographing him, and that was inspirational for me. I'm Max Alexander, photographer and creative strategist. This is my exhibition, Our Fragile Space, about how space is becoming very congested with satellites and space debris. So far this project's taken 3 years. It was a year in the planning, a year of photography, so to engage with the space sector, government agencies, military, insurance, finance, astronomy, academia. So all those industries, working in the sector for 10 years, I had to bring out my black book and bring in all those contacts. And a year's photography around the world, and now we're going through a phase of the touring exhibition. I use the power of visual storytelling. These are complicated ideas. Space is you talk about the Earth, where do you start? So I've really broken it down into 3 key areas, and that was important to have that narrative. Also, conflict is important in storytelling. So we have that natural conflict built into the story. We've got how we use space, how we're starting to pollute it, so how do we protect space, and what are we going to do about it? So that naturally fell out of that during this period in 2019, when there was an increase of constellations, an exponential growth of so-called mega constellation satellites that give us internet coverage around the world. If there's one takeaway from the exhibition, just one idea, it's protecting the near space environment where the satellites are. Just 500 kilometres away, the distance from here to London is no distance at all. Last year there were 50,000 collision avoidance manoeuvres. That's one every 10 minutes. So if the population increases by tenfold in the next 10 years, maybe there'll be a collision avoidance manoeuvre every minute. And that's just a numbers game. Eventually these satellites will collide with each other and create more debris. That environment may become unusable in the long run. This is Donald Kessler. In the 1970s he came up with this idea now called the Kessler syndrome. You have a domino effect in space, where one satellite hits another, creates a debris field, and there's a cascading effect, like a domino effect you see where these pieces of debris keep knocking into each other. This is really important because in the future those orbits may be lost. If this is a runaway Kessler syndrome, you won't be able to deploy your satellites there, and all those features, all those benefits that we gain from space may become inoperable. We don't want that to happen. This is a critical issue. As I've gone about, I think I'm in a unique position. I've engaged with all these different sectors around the world. People are very concerned about it, and you can hear it. And the architecture of space is changing. There's a lot of interesting things going around the world with government, with military, and these ideas are coalescing around a common goal. We may end up at the end of it with a space traffic management treaty, like there is for aviation. That's been very successful for air traffic control, and maybe the end game here is space traffic management, because it is the Wild West out there at the moment. So I use reportage photography and portraiture to tell the story, especially the human story, but also in this case I needed to do some artwork to make the invisible visible. So I've made a montage here. During the course of the project over a year, every time I photographed in a space clean room, in a museum, a private collection, I would photograph examples of what's in space. So this is a very accurate representation of the types of objects which are in space. You've got solar panels, boom arms, entire satellites, down to a screw and cable ties, and that's all up there. It's all up there in space. So this is a piece of artwork, a visual representation, a schematic, if you like, of what's in space. This is new materials. Instead of using aluminium and other toxic materials in space, which can become toxic when they enter the Earth's atmosphere for humans, these biomaterials like flax plants could then really disintegrate in orbit and not be a problem for human health. Got support from the University of Edinburgh. AstroAgency have been incredible to help that happen as well. Skyrora, who are a launch company here in Scotland, Craft Prospect, Omanus Analytics, the Royal Society of Edinburgh, and also Alpha Data.